Hi there, welcome to the latest episode of my 10-minute moan. And the topic of this 10-minute moan is question why our Home Office, our government, and indeed bodies like Prevent are trying to downplay Islamic fundamentalist behaviour in the United Kingdom. Now, excuse me, the reason for this video is the think tank Now, the reason for this video is the Policy Exchange think tank came by unpublished Home Office documents, which suggested quite a lot of things, and a lot of the things on that document and proposal are made their way into the public domain. And it's quite scary, because groups like Prevent, now Prevent was brought along or created to stop people being radicalised. And obviously, you don't need to be a specialist in it to imagine that one of the biggest risks of radicalising people is Islam. Not Islam itself as a whole, but the fundamentalists and the terrorists who are Islamic. And we've seen many cases like that. In fact, the girl Begum who went out to join ISIS is a great example of that. And through her story, we've learned that this is not an uncommon thing, where they will recruit people to their way of thinking online. So Prevent was brought about to counter that and to prevent that, and obviously they failed miserably with Axel Rudicabana recently. However, that's highlighted some indeficiencies in their part, and their recent figures claimed that less than 30% of the cases they were looking at were indeed Muslim ideologies. However, that contradicted the Counterterror police at the time, where their figures suggested that 80% of the people they had that they were investigating were actually Islamic radicals. So the two figures are so bizarre. What were they trying to do? Well, oddly enough, they claimed that about 25% of the cases that they were looking at were far right. So what they were doing is they were classifying almost 50% of the cases that they were dealing with radicalisation as neither far right nor Islamic. So what was radicalising these people? And what they're trying to do is create more groups and more reasons to say, well, this is a source of radicalisation, to try and water down the true effects that the police are seeing in their investigations, where they suggest 80% are of Muslim origin. Now, what they're also saying in this report is, even talking about grooming gangs is just a rhetoric dreamt up by the far right. And if you involve yourself in that sort of stuff, then you are far right. When that's not the case. The truth, common sense and logic is neither left nor right. It's where everybody should be. So to say that anybody that's using common sense and logic and to be upset and concerned about the rise of, for example, Islamic grooming gangs is somehow far right is completely ridiculous. And what's happening here is we're quite clearly been a driven rhetoric and a driven narrative to dumb down the society to think that Islamic fundamentalists are far less a problem than the reality. So it's crazy. It's actually dangerous, because if folk go, it's not that big a problem, then the eyes are off the ball and we draw our attentions to other places, which, if other things are needing attention, then that's fine. But to try and downplay the effects of Islamic radicalisation in the United Kingdom is both inaccurate and stupid. And to call out anybody, and I'll be a target for that just by means of this video being put out, that I'm in some way far right, racist, Islamophobic, etc., 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 it's just absolutely ridiculous. And all I believe I am a temperature gauge for the good people of Great Britain. I don't believe there's that many people that don't feel the same as me. In fact, I would suggest the majority of people in the United Kingdom have the same concerns as I have. And those are, the issue I have and fears I have and concerns I have are knife crime, the risks of terrorism, the amount of immigration we have. That's not to say I'm anti-immigration. The number is far too high. And when we're talking in millions, 7 figures, we actually should get it down to 5 figures below 50,000 a year. And we have a lack of housing, we have an increase of homeless, we have incredible drug problems, and all these are concerns that I have. And when you view these concerns and you react to these concerns, that does not make you for anything. That makes you normal. But for some daft reason, the Home Office, Prevent, the government, and some in the media want to paint people like me as far-right racists and Islamophobic. And that's not the case. It's far from the case. And it's got to stop. And as they're trying to, we even seen it with the Southport was the thing that's ignited a lot of this discussion. And they're trying to, suggest that we have a new type of threat, and it's all these loners and things like that, and people that have just got a liking for violence. Well, that's right. But one thing that's crucial that we missed out on with the Southport case not happening because he changed his plea to guilty was, if you're prosecuting someone, you need to show evidence of having motive. You need to show a motive and having the opportunity. Now, to prove he had the opportunity is quite simple. He was there, right? But to prove his motives would have opened up the floodgates of a lot of facts. The only thing that we've got now that's out there because he get charged because of it is the terror manual that he had. But I believe, and so do many others, that if that went to court and the prosecution had to prove motive, when you tie together the mere fact that it was a Taylor Swift kids group, or group celebrating Taylor Swift, then you can possibly tie that with the motives of others in continental Europe who had terror threats against Taylor Swift because it didn't fit in with their fundamental beliefs as Islamists. So the motive of the killings in Southport will never have to be proven in a court of law. And although I am delighted that he is guilty, and I'm delighted that he's got a sentence that will probably never see him breathe fresh air again, I'm quite happy with these things. And I think for the families having no case and having these things flung out in public, and although I may be wrong, I would imagine it's easier for them having not had to listen to that. But who am I? Some of them may have wanted to hear more truths put out in the court, but it would have been quite harrowing. So we've not got that because of the guilty verdict, but we missed out the opportunity to learn so much more about his motives, because that is something fundamentally a prosecution have to prove in a court of law to gain a guilty verdict, is that the person had motive to do it. What was the motive to carry out these attacks? So to end it though, the drive here by the government is dangerous, and by trying to calm things down, which they're trying to get people not to talk about certain types of crimes or certain types of criminals, rather, they actually make the thing worse. Because when you have the majority of people in a society feeling that their leaders who should be looking after their interests are not looking after their interests and are actually working against their interests and don't understand your concerns, then that is not going to make anybody that's got concerns happier. It will make them more unhappy. And that is when we have things like protests, which can sometimes lead to riots. So you're not actually extinguishing any fires here. You're actually throwing fuel on the fires with the direction that you've taken. And it, now we're even things like suggesting that there's two-tier policing involved, two-tier judiciary with two-tier sentencing. That has been clamped down has been far right. And again, that's just applying common sense and logic. If you look at half a dozen cases with one type of person for society, as opposed to half a dozen cases from other people in society, and the sentencing is not the same, then that would obviously lead people to suggest that there is two-tier policing and two-tier judiciary. You only have to look at the way mass protests are dealt with, where it's only very recently, as last week, where I've actually seen any riot gear at a pro-Palestinian rally, for example. But you have anything that's anti-immigration, etc., then there's always a van just up the street full of guys with helmets and shields and bands. Doesn't happen. So even the way we are policing, the way certain things happen with people being arrested, go to court, the speed that they go to court, what happens when they're at court. For example, in the summer when we've seen people being arrested for social media cases, all held in hand. But then you see a counsellor who makes gestures like this and says words I'm not going to repeat at a protest that was widely viewable online and indeed in the mainstream media, let out in bail. That kind of stinks a bit. We also had cases in the summer where a lot of them were accelerated through, the process was accelerated. Yet again, reverting back to the counsellor, his case isn't going to be heard until I think August. So that's a different way of dealing with it, with something that happened at the same time, all around the same thing, just on two different sides of that argument. And there's so many differences in the way that these people were dealt with. From the speed, bailed or not bailed, and in some cases we can see a disparity in the sentencing. And that's reality. That's not people making stuff up. But you voice those opinions, our Home Office, our government, and our media believe you to be far right, and that's wrong. If you enjoyed the video, please give me a thumbs up. If you've not already done so, please hit the subscribe and notification button. Let me know your comments below, please, always enjoy that. But most importantly of all, unless you're the type of person that wants to brandish everybody that disagrees with them and has a different opinion as far right, not you. But
everyone else, have a great day. Cheerio, bye now.